The second presidential debate of 2024, but of course the first between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And this one is very simple for Donald Trump tonight. 8 o'clock debate time, airing right here on 95.7 FM KCMO. All he has to do is stay out of the way. The muted microphones are a blessing for Donald Trump tonight. All he has to do is let America get to know Kamala Harris. Because the last time America got to know Kamala Harris, her own party didn't like her. Kamala Harris ran for president back in 2019-2020. And Kamala Harris was polling at about 4% before she dropped out of the Iowa caucuses before any votes got cast. No one ever voted for Kamala Harris for president of the United States. Her own party didn't like her. And tonight, when 70, 80 million people, maybe 90 million people, somewhere in that range of 70 to 90 million Americans tune in tonight to watch the presidential debate, Donald Trump's job is to not be the story. Donald Trump's job is to stay out of the way. Let Kamala Harris talk, and then, just like he brilliantly did in the debate against Joe Biden back in June, when it's his turn to talk, be funny, turn a line, be creative, and make a point.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Oh, jeez.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Now, that's just classic Trump. If your hope tonight is that Donald Trump is going to come in and really do deep dives on policy and be a policy wonk and the whole thing and not use the Donald Trump Trumpisms of the greatest, the best, you're the worst. If you think that Trump's not going to do that at this point, then you have been living under a rock. I had some hope that Trump would have a little more depth on policy in June because we hadn't seen him debate in 40 years, but that's just not who he is. Everything that he does is still the best and the greatest, and anything his opponent does is the worst, and World War III is going to come and the whole deal. That's just how Trump talks. That's not going to change. So I don't have any higher hopes. It's not like, I hope Trump does a deep dive on Kamala Harris's Bidenflation and what's gone on with the inflation rate the last 3.5 years and breaks down the numbers. That's just not who he is, John. I'm over it.
You're right. And I was going to ask, has he ever worked for anybody? He's always been in charge, and so he speaks like the CEO, the boss, the head person. And
he
that's
does.
Just who he is.
Yes. So I'm done trying to change him. I'm done trying to think that he's going to do anything like that. And that's fine because he doesn't need to really do anything detail-oriented to win this debate tonight. He really just needs to let Kamala Harris speak. And then when he gets his opportunity, one, don't lash out, right? Don't do the whole I'm the guy attacking the woman thing. Don't do that because the media wants to make that a narrative. That's what they want to do because they've got to drive up the gender gap on behalf of Donald Trump. The polling shows, the New York Times polling that came out Sunday was the most recent polling to show that Kamala Harris is up double digits with women. Now, Donald Trump is up double digits with men. It's the largest gender gap we've seen in modern American history based on the polling thus far. So they want to make it this whole guy versus gal thing, man versus, female empowerment type of deal. Trump has to avoid giving them that. And that brings me to my next point. How do you prepare for that if you're Donald Trump? You can't. Some people were texting me yesterday. They were upset that Trump was not doing any debate prep. Said you can't. First off, it's Trump, okay? I mean, once again, we've seen this show since 2016. Trump's not going to sit in a room and debate policy and prep policy-wise for days in a row. That's just not who he is. Once again, that's okay for this setting based on who he's debating. Because tonight is not going to be about some grandiose, incredible policy point that somebody makes. It's not. Kamala Harris is going to try to get Trump to basically bring out the worst in himself and look like a total jerk and a clown, because that's all she can do. She can't talk about policy. What's she going to run on? The record of Joe Biden that the American people overwhelmingly don't like? That's not something that she can possibly do. So then what's the next option for her? She's got to get him in the gutter. She needs to drag Donald Trump into the gutter and bring out his worst instincts. That is her only hope, and win this thing based on feels and joy and emotion. That's it. And you might think that Donald Trump can prepare for that, but I promise you he can't. None of us can prepare for that. You can stand there with somebody else who says things that are mean, but when you know deep down it's fake, you don't know how you're going to respond. You just don't. It's kind of like an athlete. Some athletes rise for the bigger moments. Some athletes collapse when the pressure's high. You can't prepare yourself for the emotions and the adrenaline rush of knowing you're standing on a live debate stage in front of almost 100 million people. You just can't do it. You can't practice those feelings. You can't conjure up and pretend like those feelings are real. Just like, some athletes like Derek Jeter, good regular season player, great postseason baseball player. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, they have some of that Derek Jeter. A lot of guys don't have it because when that adrenaline kicks in, when the moments are at their most critical, they shrink. The pressure gets to them. And you just don't know. I mean, same thing on a much more minor level in radio. There are people that do great demos. Same thing with television. But then, boom, that mic goes on, that mic goes live, that camera turns on, and suddenly it's like, wait, this is real now. You don't know how you're going to handle that. Now, the good thing for Trump is he's been in front of the camera his entire life. Donald Trump has spent most of his adult life in front of a camera and in front of a microphone. This is what he does. He has literally prepared his whole life for this moment tonight. He's not intimidated by 80 million people watching him do anything. He's debated more times as a presidential candidate than anybody in modern American history, right? He had how many primary debates? Half a dozen back in 2015-16, 3 debates with Hillary, 2 debates with Biden in 2020, a debate back in June. Kamala's got a couple of primary debates back in 2019. That's it. She has never been on a stage like this in her entire life. That right there gives Donald Trump a massive advantage because you just don't know how you're going to react in a moment like this and how you're going to handle it. Is your brain going to connect to your mouth? Are the words going to come out like you want them to? We know what Trump's going to do. He's not intimidated by the moment. The question is Kamala Harris? And if Trump's on his A game tonight, what does that mean? That means when this debate ends at about 9:37 our time, and it will air here on KCMO 95.7 FM, that will mean that we are not talking about Donald Trump. 913-408-7957 on what you want to see tonight from Donald Trump. The best plays for him. We'll be talking about it all morning. Meantime, we have the Tyreek Hill body camera footage that has been announced. And next, does CNN know that Kamala Harris is trending in the wrong direction? Is that why they are suddenly reporting things that they may not otherwise be reporting? I'll share that with you coming up next. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. That's how I feel getting ready for tonight. Woo-hoo! Mark's bobbing along in there. 6:20 on a Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us on KCMO. The debate will air at 8 p.m. right after Mark Levin on KCMO. Can't wait for the show. And I'm going to be out with Kansans for Life tonight. It's going to be a great time. What do you want to see? How do you want Trump to handle it? Paul's in Kansas City. He's first up on a Tuesday. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Pete. Yeah, I went and saw the new Reagan movie, and I forgot how the 1980 election is pretty much eerily the same as this one. Coming out of the Carter economic malaise, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, hostages held by Iran. And what Reagan did was He talked about optimism, morning in America. This is what I'm going to do. These are the issues. We're going to bring America new hope, new households for younger people, secure. But be optimistic. The shining light on the hill. That's what I want to see. I want him to just channel Reagan. If I was his handlers, I'd make him watch that movie of what Reagan did in that debate with Carter. Just, amazing.
I don't know if Trump's got the attention span for that, sitting down for the movie day of the debate. He's probably so jittery right now. But listen, I see what you're saying, but it's not going to happen. I really see what you're saying, Paul, and I totally agree with you. But here's what Trump does. This is what Trump prefers to do. His preferred method is to say, well, if you elect the other person, your life's getting even worse. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, that's just how he does it. So that's why my thought is the less of Trump tonight, the better. The more of Kamala, the better it is for Trump.
No, absolutely. I agree with Comrade Harris. And Bernie Sanders put a torpedo on her broadside when he said, hey, look, when she gets in office, bud, she's going to be a socialist. So
yes.
Don't worry, folks. So, but, yeah, I just want to I hear what you're saying. We got to let her stumble over because her record is her record. It just hit on her record. And don't take the bait. And then but be optimistic at least a little bit. That Reagan, I forgot how great he was. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Listen, I'd love to hear that from Donald Trump. Hey, you can – because here's the thing. Here's the unique part for Trump tonight. He can use optimism and he can spin it in a way where he talks about his own 40 years in office, of course, pre-pandemic, which that would have impacted anybody in a negative way. But when you talk about optimism, you can literally say, let's go back 2017 through February of 2020 and look at where this country was. Maybe you have one or two data points compared to where you are today. And the story will tell itself. It would be brilliant. I'd love to see it, Paul. Let's go to Randy. He's in Napoleon. What's up, Randy?
Hey, this morning. I just wanted to say, I'm going to play to the dark Trump. But I really honestly think he ought to come out in his opening statement and say, based on the migration problems we're having, and now Kamala Harris's house guests are eating the family pets, I'm going to rename her Somalia Harris.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen tonight, Randy. I know we've got those rumors, and right now, that's all they are. I mean, people at city council meetings in Springfield, Ohio, saying that Haitian migrants are eating house pets, but the police are not aware of anything like that just yet. So I don't think Trump should bring that up tonight. Listen, there are plenty of factual things Trump can talk about with the migration crisis, like Laken Riley at the University of Georgia, that he can talk about that are factually driven before we start worrying about the house pets in Springfield, Ohio. But I get your point, Randy. I do.
Despite what those who mispronounce the acronym MAGA actually is Make America Great Again and is an optimistic thought.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know he said for day one, drill, baby, drill. Well, that's going to bring down prices. These are all optimistic thoughts.
Yes. And if she wants to start breaking out MAGA, MAGA, MUGA, MIGA, he should do MAGAnomics and compare it to Bidenomics.
Bam.
There you go. So is CNN already bailing on Kamala Harris? Do they see some of the writing on the wall here? This report that dropped last night from the ACLU that showed how Kamala Harris was answering surveys back in 2019 when she was running for president shows that Kamala Harris was in favor of gender transition surgeries funded by taxpayers for illegal immigrants. I kid you not. Take a listen.
Tonight, Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-file investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-file found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She
migrants.
actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this.
Oh.
And
even the CNN host, Erin Burnett, is like, no, she didn't say that and write that, did she? She didn't advocate for taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants, did she? Erin Burnett on CNN is like, no, come on now. Stop yanking my chain. No. Oh, yeah. Oh, she did. Trump should have a copy of that questionnaire she filled out. Now, he can't actually, now that I think about it. They can only have a bottle of water, pen, and notes. Maybe Trump can scribble it on his hand like he's cheating on a sixth grade history test or something. He should have some of that written down.
Something tells me he has an innate ability to file things like that for future reference.
I could see that, yes. As long as he spits it out right tonight and he notes that, wait, hold on a second. You're going to try to moderate yourself to the American people right now? 80 million Americans tuned in, Kamala Harris. Do you think that illegal immigrants should get taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries? Do you think that? And let her explain that one off. But that dropped on CNN last night. And when CNN is covering it, when CNN is willing to go there, when CNN is open to reporting things like that, that makes me wonder if they see some of the writing on the wall here as to what's about to go down. Got a minute for Chris and Leewood. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Pete. Good morning. I'm obviously very optimistic that Trump's going to perform real well tonight. I thought your commentary earlier about the pressure of 100 or 80 million people, I think that really bodes well for him because I just don't understand how a person who is afraid to literally take a question on the way to the airplane, the Air Force One stairs,
yes,
can be ready to talk in front of 100 million people on live television. I mean, maybe it's possible. The only thing I would worry, I do think he's going to defeat her in the debate tonight. I do worry that the optics will, there might not be, I mean, he usually does have a great moment, but if there is any sort of moment for her, they're just going to play it on repeat.
Yes.
And the only other comment I would make, and this is related, is, Coach Wall.
Hey, I sorry, Chris, I'm out of time, my man. Listen, your first point is excellent. You're spot on. Trump doesn't really need a great moment tonight. He needs to avoid giving her a great moment. That's what he's got to avoid. That's the goal for Trump. He just got to stay alive, man. That's it. Just got to keep himself in a position that he's in right now. He's got to make sure that going into this debate, he is calm, cool, and collected. He's got Kamala on her toes, and all the pressure's on her tonight. Everybody knows everything about Donald Trump, right? There's nothing new to learn about Donald Trump. Guy's been the most talked about person on the planet for the better part of 10 years. Nobody knows Kamala Harris. Nobody. And frankly, the people that get to know her don't really like her. And that's not a partisan statement. The Democrats didn't like her when she was running for president back in 2016. Don't accuse me of something that's not true. If you're listening right now and you might disagree, you know it as well as I do. I mean, unless you were like in the tank for Kamala Harris back in 2019, then you weren't a fan of her either. And the polling suggested only 4% of Democratic primary voters liked Kamala Harris. So what more do you need? Tonight's the debate, 8 o'clock. It will air right here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And you hear about this intense debate prep that Kamala Harris is going through right now. I want to play this clip from CNN reporter Eva McKend. And she was talking yesterday on CNN about the debate prep that Kamala Harris was going through. It's too much. I'm not one of these guys that, whether it's college finals or debate prep, says don't study or don't do your job. You should. You probably should do more prep than Trump usually ends up doing for these things. I wish he did more prep in general. But there is such a thing as over preparation. It does exist. And it sounds like that's some of what's going on here.
She has closely studied the former president's past 6 debate performances. She's also been sort of entrenched in these briefing papers going over the former president's past comments, as well as the ways that he has insulted her, so she can be prepared to respond to that. She's engaged in these mock debates with a stand-in for the former president, and she's had conversations with Hillary Clinton and President Biden, who both extensively have knowledge of debating the former president.
Yeah, I'm sure Biden's going to be a real useful tool for her in this debate prep. He's going to be like, yeah, you know, that time we debated back in 2020 with Chris Wallace, that was wild. Joe, you debated her. You debated him 2.5 months ago, buddy. He's going to be like, wait, what? Wait, what? What are we talking about? Yeah, no. You debated Trump like in late June. Oh, gosh, I totally forgot about that one. Yeah, Joe, that's not why you're not here anymore. That's why you're not the candidate anymore, because of that debate and the way it went down. Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the last 2.5 months of my life. Yeah. Wait, I'm still president? What's going on here?
Come on, man.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not sure how much help that's going to be. As for Hillary Clinton, come on now. I don't know what advice Hillary Clinton is going to give you. But I do know this much. There are things in life that you can't really prepare for. There are moments in life that you can do all the research you want, all the studying you want, and it's not going to prepare you for that moment. There are things you need to do to get better at them. You can't just learn them. That's why when former politicians get into media, most of them are not very good because they're not trained in it. Now, this is not something that you need to sit in a classroom and learn how to do. You just have to do it. It's one of the many things I was told early in my career. Stop learning how to do it. Stop watching videos on how to do it. Stop listening to podcasts on how to do it. You just have to do it. You just have to go out there and do a show. You have to go out there and be on TV. You don't get better at it by learning about it. You get better at it by doing it. There are certain things in life that are just that way. And debating happens to be one of them. Because you can have all the pre-canned lines that you want. You can have this guy acting as Donald Trump in this made-up debate, holed up in Pittsburgh somewhere, preparing for this moment. But until you get on that stage and you've got 100 million people watching you on live television in real time and the mics are hot, you don't know how you're going to react when Donald Trump looks at you and says something. And Donald Trump has trained for this moment his entire life. He has spent 50 years in the spotlight. He has spent the last 25 years of his life in front of a television screen. Between The Apprentice, all the interviews he's done going back 35 years now, Oprah, nightly newscasts, every entertainment program in America, Saturday Night Live, more debates over the last 10 years than anybody in modern American history. No one's done more of this. So while I would love to see Donald Trump prepare a little more and have a little more policy substance than I'm the best, she's the worst, Trump goes into this thing with a massive edge tonight. And when I hear CNN reporting about how she's talking to Hillary and Joe and has a fake Trump as she does these fake debates, I'm not impressed. Like, it's over preparation to me. At some point, you've got to just say to yourself, I can either do this or I can't. And if you overthink it, if you sit there and say to yourself, gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it tonight. If you overthink it because you've got too much going on in your head, then you're going to fall flat on your face. It's the same thing I've told guys when they're doing the first radio show. Do not overthink it. Pop the mic, have a conversation, have some bullet points, and try to make sense. But don't overthink it. If you overthink it, you're going to find yourself in big trouble. 913-408-7957. Independence is where John is this morning. John, go ahead, my man.
Yeah, you hit everything that I was going to bring up. That she's going to over-prepare, just like Biden did, and it's going to come back to bite her. I really think that Trump is going to come across as the elder statesman, and he knows that this is his moment to seize the White House back and do what he needs to help the country get back on track.
Yeah,
and I really think that he's just going to make her look like kind of a petty, screechy, up there, Trump bad, Hitler, Orange Man, blah blah blah. People are getting tired of hearing that stuff. It's time. We need to see somebody come back and get us fixed. We need the country healed again. It's like we've been through too much for the last. Even when Trump was in his first term, all that stuff with the Russian collusion and all that, just dragging the whole country through a bunch of unnecessary drama. Mm-hmm. We need Trump back in the White House, plain and simple. And I think tonight he's going to nail it.
Well, the one thing to your point, if you want Trump to look like the elder statesman here, which I would agree with, he's got to make sure he doesn't take her bait to go in the gutter, because that's what she's going to want to do, John.
Well, I'm sure that's what she's going to do, and I know that look how he dealt with the 16 different guys and people that he ran against back in 2016. He took out every single one of them. Jeb Bush was supposed to be the heir apparent to the nomination back in 2016. Low energy.
Yeah, but here's what I will say, John, and you make some good points. But dealing with Jeb Bush in 2016 is different than dealing today with Kamala Harris. No one had ever seen anything like Donald Trump in 2016. And taking out Jeb Bush, that was fun for everybody. Republicans, Democrats, independents, that was just fun. You were taking down a dynasty in American politics. People were sick of the Bush, Clinton, all the stuff for the last 30 years. They were over it. And Trump was new on the scene. Trump can't use Jeb Bush tactics tonight. He'll lose if he does that. All he's got to do when she tries to get in the gutter is simply go out there and say, I know what you're trying to do. He could use the old Reagan line, there you go again, if he wants to. He could use that line and basically share her playbook with the American people. He can say, you're trying to drag me into the gutter, there you go again. I'm here to talk about things that matter to the American people. Like how your administration, through your policies, bad monetary policy, bad economic policy, has driven up the cost for the average American family by $11,000 over the last 3.5 years. Just be transparent on what her playbook is. Call it out. I see what you're doing, and I'm not here to get in the gutter with you. I'm standing up here as a former president who wants to serve another 4 years to help the American people turn this country around from what they've seen the last 3.5. That's it. Call out the playbook right in TV in front of 100 million Americans. I think it'd work out brilliantly. All right, John, who won those Tucker Carlson tickets, my man?
Mike and Shawnee going to the show now.
All right. Yeah. Congratulations there, Mike and Shawnee. Mm-hmm. We'll have another chance tomorrow morning at 7:45 after the debate takes place tonight, 8 o'clock. It will air right here on KCMO Talk Radio. So we'll be listening if you're in the car then, or you want to. Sometimes listening is more fun than watching. So we'll have it tonight right here on 95.7 FM and 710 AM. So by now you probably have seen the rumors, the social media posts about Haitian migrants grabbing pets out of yards and ducks from public parks so they can eat them in Springfield, Ohio. Now, to be very clear, let's start with the facts. The facts don't suggest that is happening right now. People have claimed this at city council meetings, but the Springfield, Ohio police told the Springfield News-Sun that illegal immigrants eating pets is not something that's on their radar right now. That's what they have said. A city spokesperson said there have been no credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. So that's what we've got right now from city officials. So I've been to city council meetings, and yes, there can be some wackos that speak at them. People should be engaged, but right now it's just stuff that has been said at city council meetings. That's what we've got so far.
Right. It's like the litter box that's in every custodial room in every high school around here. It's true, Pete.
Yes. Now, not saying it's not. All I can do 600 miles away is simply go off of what's being reported by law enforcement. And right now, law enforcement doesn't have any claims of that. But this story does matter. Here's what the facts are out of this city, Springfield, Ohio. The facts are this. What we do know is this, is that in a city of about 60,000 people west of Columbus, Ohio, officials do say that 20,000 Haitian immigrants have been flown into the city the last several years, which puts a massive strain on city services, which has a negative impact on those taxpayers. 20,000 people flying in to a city of 60,000 people. That is a third of your population.
And not adding to the tax base.
And not,
Right.
I mean, these are people that mostly need help, right? They need services. So that's what you're working with. That's what you're dealing with. That's not good for the taxpayer in Springfield, Ohio. That's a loss for them. Their services are not getting better. In fact, their services likely are only getting worse. So when you look at it from that perspective, whether people are eating pets or they're biting off ducks' heads at the pond or whatever they're doing, like what matters here is 11 million people coming into the country over the last 3.5 years has consequences. And you may not feel it in Prairie Village, in Leawood, in Overland Park, in Lee Summit. You may not feel it directly, but there are communities that are feeling it directly. And if you were in one of those communities, by the way, I don't think you'd be all that happy about it. I don't care if you vote for Trump. I don't care if you're going to vote for Kamala. If that was your community where you had a third of your population imported with illegal immigrants who largely need help, they need public services, they don't speak the language, they're not legal citizens, they can't just walk up and start getting jobs and being, productive members of the community. That takes time. You would not be happy with that. And no matter how woke you are, if you are behind closed doors and you are speaking privately to your spouse, to your best friend, to somebody that you confide in, you would admit that that would not make you happy. You would not be thrilled with that. I don't care if you have the sign outside of your house right now. In this house, we believe no human is illegal. Oh, trust me. If that was your backyard, you'd suddenly think that humans can be illegal. Because you've got to have rules, you've got to have borders for a country. It doesn't mean you can't have empathy, but you've got to have a legalized process. And 11 million people across the border in 3.5 years is having real impacts on real communities in America. And that's what this Springfield story to me is really about. But of course, when you look at some of the other folks who are commenting on this now, let's go to Auntie Maxine Waters. It's been a little bit since we've heard from Maxine Waters, but she is still a member of Congress. I know, it's pretty amazing
Talk
stuff.
about a bombshell.
She is, how old is Maxine these days? Oh, my gosh, she
87.
just turned 86.
Oh,
April 15th.
overshot.
Yeah, you overshot by a hair. She's still, spring chicken there in Congress, right?
Yeah. She's
It's
not
really
in her 90s.
Yeah. I mean, once you get to 88, we start calling
She's
you old.
still on university.
Exactly right. So Maxine Waters goes on MSNBC this week talking about the story. And of course, if you criticize this story, if you have anything to say about the story, guess what? You are let's say it together. Give me the R word. Come on, don't let me down. The R word from Maxine Waters is racist. Here we go. Let's get the Maxine Waters clip. Boom.
Well, let me just say this, that Haitians have been the victims of, not only our country, but Canada and France for years, historically. They're black, they're poor. It's the poorest country in the hemisphere. They have been exploited, and it continues all the time. They are not, it does not appear that they're seen in the same way that they see others. Haitians have been the victims because they were the first country to fight off, the repression of France. And, of course, France have made them pay a big price for it. Yes, I think they're treated differently because they're black, because they are Haitians, and because traditionally they have not been treated as human beings.
Okay. All right, Maxine. Wow. All right. That's something else.
She's a real beauty.
So I wish Maxine Waters cared about American black citizens as much as she apparently cares about Haitians. Because you know who gets impacted most? The communities that get impacted most are not places like Johnson County, Kansas. They are oftentimes communities in either very urban settings or much more rural settings, where you have either working class to working poor white people, or you have working class to working poor black people and Latino people. Those are the communities that gets impacted the most by these policies, because that's oftentimes where these individuals end up. It's where they can find housing. It's where they have an ability to maybe live. They are not living in the backyards of folks in Johnson County for obvious reasons. And that has major impacts on those communities, I will add, right? It puts them in situations where you're potentially dealing with crime. You're dealing with people who are not citizens, so it's harder to track down that crime sometimes. There's an influx potentially in your schools that already are lacking resources. So these people who always claim they're for the little guy, they're fighting for the working poor. No, they're trying to do one thing and one thing only, and that is change the voting demographic in America. That's it. That's all they care about for their own political power. They, of course, mask that in self-righteousness. They mask it in, opening up our arms as a country to people who need it, which we should do. We are America, after all. But you have to have a process. You have to have limitations, and you have to focus on making sure you're taking care of American citizens first. And they're not. Maxine Waters not interested in that. They're just trying to create a new voting bloc to give them more and never-ending power. That's it. That's all they're interested in. That's all they care about. And if they cared more about the people in their own communities, they wouldn't be promoting policies like this.
See, the government acts like the cable company.
They do love doing that, don't
or
they?
The phone company. Yeah, we already got your business.
Yeah. On to the next one. 913-408-7957 as we approach the 8 o'clock hour. It's debate night. It'll air 8 p.m. here on KCMO Talk Radio.